Someone is controlling your mind right now, and you don't even see it. Not with force, not with power, but with something far more dangerous: your reactions. Every time you feel the need to respond, to defend, to explain, you give them access, not just to your words, to your peace. And the worst part? They don't even have to try, because you do it for them. You open the door. You invite the chaos. You hand over control willingly. If this already hit something inside you, consider subscribing for more content like this, and watch the next video after this. It will go even deeper. This is where everything changes. You think reacting makes you strong. It doesn't. It makes you predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. They know exactly how to trigger you. They know what to say. They know where to push, because you've shown them. Again, and again, and again. Look at your life. How many times have you argued just to feel heard? How many times have you explained yourself to people who already decided to misunderstand you? That wasn't strength. That was emotional exposure. And people exploit what you expose. This is the truth no one wants to accept. Not everyone deserves your voice. Not everyone deserves your presence. Not everyone deserves access to your mind. But you give it anyway, because silence feels uncomfortable. Silence makes you feel weak. Silence feels like losing, but it's not. Silence is control. When you say nothing, you remove their power. When you stay calm, you break their expectation. When you walk away, you win without playing. But most people can't do this, because they're addicted to reacting, addicted to being right, addicted to being seen, addicted to being validated. And that addiction is the chain that keeps them controlled. Break that, and everything shifts. Imagine this. Someone disrespects you. They expect emotion. They expect anger. They expect a response. But you give them nothing. No reaction. No explanation. No energy. Just silence. Now watch what happens. They get uncomfortable, because they lost access. They can't control what they can't reach. And your silence becomes your shield. Not weak, not passive, controlled. This is what separates you. Not strength, not intelligence. Discipline, the ability to feel everything and still choose nothing. That's power. And once you understand this, you move differently. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop giving yourself away. Because now, you see the game. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If this is already shifting your mindset, comment, control. Stay with me. This is only the surface. Most people don't lose because they're weak. They lose because they can't control themselves. One word triggers them. One look unsettles them. One opinion destroys their mood. And just like that, their peace is gone. Not taken, given away. This is why Stoic thinkers focused on one thing above everything else: control of the mind. Epictetus said something simple, but brutal. You don't control what happens. You control how you respond. And that's where most people fail. They try to control others. They try to control outcomes. They try to control opinions. And they lose themselves in the process. Because the more you chase control outside, the less you have inside. Let that sink in. You're not tired because life is hard. You're tired because you're reacting to everything. Every message, every comment, every look, every situation. Your mind never rests. And that's not strength. That's chaos. Now shift your perspective. What if you stopped reacting? Not sometimes, consistently. What if you became someone who cannot be easily moved? That's where power begins. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But people ignore this because it's easier to blame, easier to react, easier to stay emotional. But easy keeps you weak. Let's go deeper. When someone disrespects you, what are they really doing? They're testing your control. They're checking your reaction threshold. They're asking one question without words. Can I move you? And most people answer instantly. Yes. Through anger, through defense, through explanation. They show everything. And once someone knows they can move you, they own you. Not physically, mentally. That's the level this operates on. Now imagine the opposite. They try to provoke you, and nothing happens. No reaction, no emotion, no engagement, just presence. Now the question flips. They start wondering, why can't I reach this person? That's power. That's control. That's dominance without effort. Because real strength doesn't announce itself. It shows in restraint. This is Stoic discipline. Not suppression, not avoidance. Control. Feeling everything, but choosing what to express. That's rare. And rare people are respected. But let's be honest again. You've been trained to react. Since childhood. Speak up. Defend yourself. Prove your point. And in some situations, that matters. But most of the time, it's unnecessary. Because not every situation deserves your energy. And energy is your most valuable asset. Once it's gone, you feel it. Drained, frustrated, unfocused. All because you reacted to something that didn't deserve you. That's the mistake. And it happens daily. But now you're aware. Now you start seeing it. The patterns, the triggers, the manipulation. And awareness is where control begins. Next time it happens, pause. Don't rush. Don't react. Observe. Feel the urge. Feel the tension. Feel the impulse to respond. And do nothing. That moment, that exact moment, that's your test. Pass it, and you level up. Fail it, and you repeat the cycle. Simple. Not easy, but simple. This is what separates disciplined minds from emotional minds. One reacts, the other chooses. Now listen carefully. Ignoring people is not about ego. It's not about thinking you're better. It's about protecting your internal state, your focus, your clarity, your peace. Because once your mind is disturbed, everything suffers. Your decisions, your actions, your results, all affected. That's why Stoic wisdom emphasizes inner stability. Because without it, you're at the mercy of everything around you. And that's not where you want to be. You want to be grounded, untouchable, unshaken. Not because nothing happens, but because nothing controls you. That's the goal. And it starts with one habit. Not reacting. Not immediately. Not emotionally. Not impulsively. But intentionally. Every time. Now here's where it gets deeper. Silence is not just protection. It's observation. When you stop reacting, you start seeing. Clearly. You notice intentions. You notice patterns. You notice truth. Because your emotions are no longer clouding your judgment. And clarity changes everything. You stop trusting words. You start watching actions. You stop chasing approval. You start building self-respect. You stop needing validation. You start creating it internally. That shift is everything. Because once you validate yourself, nobody can manipulate you with approval. And that's freedom. Real freedom. Not external. Internal. And most people never reach it. Because they never stop reacting. They stay trapped in emotional cycles. Triggered. Reactive. Drained. Over and over again. Don't stay there. You've seen too much now. You understand too much now. So move differently. When they try to pull you in, step back. When they try to provoke you, stay still. When they expect a reaction, give them silence. That's how you win. Not by force, but by control. Most people misunderstand silence. They think silence means weakness. They think silence means surrender. They think silence means you have nothing to say. They are wrong. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is control. Silence is choice. Silence is dominance over impulse. When you stay silent, you are not losing. You are deciding. You are deciding that this moment does not deserve your energy. You are deciding that your peace is more valuable than being understood by the wrong people. This is where most people fail. They feel misunderstood and instantly react. They feel disrespected and instantly respond. They feel attacked and instantly defend themselves. And in that instant, they lose themselves. Because every reaction reveals something. It reveals emotion. It reveals vulnerability. It reveals attachment. And once people see that in you, they know how to move you. This is why Stoic philosophy teaches distance from emotional control. Seneca said something powerful. No man is free who is not master of himself. Think about that carefully. If your emotions control your actions, you are not free. If your reactions are automatic, you are not free. If people can change your mood with a sentence, you are not free. You are reacting on command without realizing it. Now shift that. Imagine someone insults you and nothing inside you moves. No anger, no urge to respond, no emotional spike, just awareness. That is not weakness. That is mastery. That is what most people cannot understand. Because they confuse reaction with strength. They think being loud is power. They think defending everything is respect. But real strength does not need validation. Real strength does not need correction. Real strength does not need to prove itself. It just is. Now go deeper. Every time you react, you lose control of the moment. You step into their frame. You enter their emotional space. You play their game. And in their game, you are always responding. Never leading. Never deciding. Always following emotional triggers. But when you stay silent, everything shifts. They lose direction. They lose certainty. They lose control over your emotional response. And that confusion weakens their influence over you. Because control requires predictability. And you become unpredictable when you stop reacting. Now understand this clearly. Most people are not trying to destroy you. They are testing you. Testing your reaction. Testing your boundaries. Testing your emotional stability. And every reaction you give becomes data for them. They learn you. They map you. They understand what buttons to press. And once that happens, you are no longer in control of your own emotional space. This is why Stoic discipline focuses on internal governance. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that external events do not disturb the mind. Only judgment does. Let that settle. It is not what happens that disturbs you. It is how you interpret it. It is how you respond internally. It is the meaning you attach. And that means you always have a choice. But most people forget that choice exists. They react automatically. They justify it later. They say, I had to respond. But you did not have to. You chose to. And that choice has consequences. Every unnecessary reaction weakens your discipline. Every emotional response strengthens external control over you. Every argument you enter drains your internal energy. Now think about your daily life. How many conversations did you not need to respond to? How many arguments did you not need to enter? How many emotional exchanges were completely unnecessary? And yet you participated. Because silence felt uncomfortable. Because letting go felt like losing. But real loss is not silence. Real loss is losing control over yourself. That is the real damage. Now reframe everything. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is filtration. You are filtering what deserves your energy. You are filtering what deserves your attention. You are filtering what deserves access to your mind. And most things do not pass that filter. Most things are noise. Most things are distraction. Most things are emotional traps disguised as conversations. And once you recognize that, your behavior must change. Not occasionally, consistently. You stop reacting immediately. You start observing first. You allow space between trigger and response. Because in that space, you regain control. In that space, you choose differently. In that space, you become free. Now understand this final truth in this section. People do not respect emotional reaction. They respect emotional control. They respect restraint. They respect the person who does not flinch. the person who does not rush, the person who does not chase emotional closure. That person feels different. That person is different. And that difference creates influence without effort. Because controlled energy is powerful energy. And now you are beginning to see the pattern. Reaction weakens you. Silence strengthens you. Emotional response exposes you. Controlled response protects you. And awareness changes everything. Now you begin to see what happens when silence becomes a habit, not a reaction. Silence stops being something you use. It becomes something you are. At this level, you no longer debate internally before responding. You simply observe and decide nothing is required. Most people cannot reach this stage because their identity is tied to response. They believe speaking proves existence. They believe reacting proves awareness. But awareness does not require noise. It requires clarity. And clarity removes unnecessary movement from the mind. When your mind stops chasing every stimulus, something powerful emerges. You start noticing intention behind words, not just the words themselves. You see manipulation before it forms. You see emotional bait before it lands. And because you see earlier, you respond less. This is where control deepens into precision. You no longer need to prove discipline. Your restraint becomes natural. And natural restraint is more powerful than forced discipline. Forced discipline is still conflict. Natural restraint is alignment. Most people live inside constant emotional engagement. Every message is a trigger. Every tone is a signal. Every opinion becomes a threat or validation. But you step out of that cycle. You begin to observe conversations like patterns instead of battles. And when you observe instead of fight, you gain space others cannot access. Space is where control lives. Without space, reaction dominates. With space, choice dominates. This is why emotional distance is not coldness. It is structure. It is internal order in a chaotic environment. People will misinterpret it at first. They will assume you are detached. They will assume you are uninterested. But what they are really seeing is someone no longer programmable by emotion. That confusion is your advantage. Because predictable people are easy to influence. Unpredictable calm disrupts control systems. Now understand something deeper. Every emotional reaction is a transfer of authority. You give authority to the situation. You give authority to the person. You give authority to the moment. And each transfer reduces internal leadership. But silence reverses that process. Silence pulls authority back inward. It reassigns control to awareness. Not emotion. Not impulse. Awareness. And awareness does not rush. It evaluates. It filters. It discards what is irrelevant. This is why silence feels uncomfortable at first. Because the mind is addicted to movement. Confuses movement with progress. But not every movement is progress. Some movement is leakage. Energy leaking into arguments that lead nowhere. Attention leaking into emotional traps disguised as conversations. Once you recognize leakage, you stop participating blindly. You start conserving force. And conserved force becomes strength when needed. Not all battles deserve entry. Not all words deserve response. Not all moments deserve your presence. This is where discernment replaces reaction. Discernment is advanced control. It is not suppression. It is selection. You are not suppressing emotion. You are selecting engagement. And selection is power. Now look at real-life situations. Someone provokes you in public. Someone tries to embarrass you. Someone speaks with intention to disturb your balance. The old version of you reacts instantly. The trained mind pauses internally. Not physically visible pause. Internal stillness. That stillness breaks the emotional chain. Because the chain requires automatic response. When response is delayed, the chain collapses. And what remains is clarity. In clarity, ego loses urgency. And when ego loses urgency, silence becomes effortless. You no longer feel the need to restore image immediately. Because image becomes irrelevant in the moment. Only awareness remains relevant. This is the shift most people never experience. They live inside constant image management. always defending perception, always correcting misunderstanding, always chasing approval. But approval is unstable ground. It changes with mood, audience, and context. Control does not depend on approval. Control depends on internal stability. And stability is built through repetition of restraint. Each moment you choose not to react, you strengthen internal architecture. Each moment you pause instead of respond, you expand awareness range. Each moment you observe instead of engage, you reduce external influence. Over time, this becomes identity, not effort. Identity. And identity is what governs behavior when attention is not focused. Now understand the paradox. The less you react, the more influence you gain. Because influence is not volume. Influence is perception of control. People trust the one who is not easily moved. They lean toward the one who does not collapse under pressure. They listen more carefully to the one who does not chase validation. Not because that person demands respect, but because that person demonstrates stability. And stability is rare. Now bring attention to emotional economy. Every reaction costs energy. Every unnecessary explanation drains focus. Every argument consumes mental bandwidth. Most people are bankrupt without realizing it. Not financially, emotionally, mentally. They spend energy reacting to things that were never important. They respond to noise as if it carries weight. And over time, their mind becomes crowded. Crowded minds cannot perceive clearly, but silence clears space. And cleared space improves perception. You start noticing patterns others miss. You start anticipating outcomes earlier. You start seeing consequences before actions complete. This is not intuition alone. It is reduced interference. Less emotional noise equals more cognitive precision. Now apply this in relationships. Not every comment requires correction. Not every misunderstanding requires explanation. Not every tension requires resolution in the moment. Some things resolve themselves when you stop feeding them energy. But people struggle here because they equate silence with loss of control. In reality, silence often is control because it removes fuel. Without fuel, emotional fires fade naturally. And what remains is only truth, without distortion. Now internalize this carefully. You are not here to win every interaction. You are here to maintain internal sovereignty. Winning conversations means nothing if you lose internal balance. Being understood means nothing if you lose emotional stability. Being right means nothing if you lose control over yourself. So the standard changes. From winning to preserving. From reacting to selecting. From proving to observing. And this new standard reshapes behavior completely. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop defending every interpretation. You stop entering emotional arenas designed to drain you. Instead, you remain anchored. And anchoring is not passive. It is active restraint. It is conscious withholding of energy. It is disciplined non-participation in chaos. Now a deeper truth emerges. People will test your silence. Not always consciously. Sometimes through emotion. Sometimes through pressure. Sometimes through repetition. They want to see if you break. If you respond. If you return to predictable reaction. But every test is an opportunity, not to prove strength, but to reinforce it. Each time you remain steady, pattern changes. They begin to adjust behavior around your stability, because they realize emotional access is no longer automatic. And when access is no longer automatic, influence weakens. Now you are no longer easily mapped, no longer easily triggered, no longer easily controlled. This is the beginning of psychological independence, not isolation, independence. And independence means internal decisions are no longer outsourced to external stimulation. You decide timing, you decide response, you decide relevance, and most importantly, you decide silence. That is control in its purest form. If you reached this level of understanding, the next step is not more knowledge. It is application in real moments where emotion tries to override awareness. That is where transformation becomes real. Now you reach the stage where silence is no longer a practice. It becomes your default state. You do not prepare to be silent. You simply are not driven to respond unnecessarily. This is where internal order replaces emotional chaos. Because chaos requires participation. Without participation, chaos collapses. Most people never realize how much of their suffering is self-maintained through reaction. They believe they are dealing with situations, but in truth, they are sustaining situations through attention. Remove attention and many problems lose structure, but this requires discipline over impulse. Not suppression, but awareness strong enough to override instinct. At this level, silence is not something you apply in conflict. It begins before conflict even forms. You notice tone shifts earlier. You recognize intention earlier. You detect emotional bait before it becomes a hook. So you never fully enter the trap. This is advanced perception, not emotional blindness, emotional clarity. Now your reactions reduce further, not because you are forcing restraint, but because fewer things qualify as necessary response. You begin to see how much conversation is actually performance. People speak not to exchange truth, but to regulate emotion, to gain validation, to release frustration, to test control over others. Once you see this clearly, participation changes. You stop treating every statement as meaningful. You start filtering meaning, and filtration is power, because not everything deserves interpretation. Not everything deserves internal processing. Some things are noise pretending to be signal, and the untrained mind cannot differentiate, so it reacts to all of it. The disciplined mind differentiates first, then decides if engagement is required. This delay between stimulus and response becomes your advantage. In that delay, freedom exists. Without delay, instinct governs you. Now extend this into pressure situations. Someone raises their voice. Someone attempts to dominate the conversation. Someone tries to force urgency into your mind. The old pattern would rush to match their energy. But matching energy is surrendering structure, because you enter their emotional frequency. And once you enter, they control the pace. But when you stay steady, something shifts. Their urgency has nowhere to land. Their intensity finds no reflection. And without reflection, intensity weakens. This is why calm presence unsettles unbalanced people. It removes their emotional feedback loop. Now they are forced to face their own output. And many cannot handle that mirror. So they escalate or withdraw. Either way, control returns to you. Not through action, through non-participation. This is where misunderstanding often happens. People think silence is avoidance, but avoidance is fear-based. Silence at this level is clarity-based. You are not running away from engagement. You are refusing unnecessary engagement. There is a difference. One is escape. The other is selection. Now consider internal dialogue. Most reactions begin before words are spoken. Inside the mind, arguments form instantly. Rebuttals appear. Defenses activate. Emotional narratives build momentum. If you do not interrupt this early stage, it becomes speech. And speech locks emotion into reality. But if you interrupt it internally, nothing external is needed. This is where mastery deepens. You begin controlling the pre-response phase. Not just spoken reaction, but mental formation of reaction. This is harder, because it is invisible, but it is where most of your energy is lost. Silent internal arguments drain more power than spoken ones, because they are unresolved loops. Once you cut the loop early, energy is preserved. Now extend this into identity again. People who react easily are readable. Their emotional patterns are exposed. Their triggers are known. Their boundaries are mapped. And once mapped, they are influenced without resistance. But unreadable calm changes that dynamic. Because there is no predictable emotional pattern to exploit. This does not mean you become emotionless. It means your emotion is no longer externally accessible on demand. It responds only when you choose. That is sovereignty. Now bring attention to social environments. In groups, pressure increases. Opinions multiply. Attention disperses. Noise rises. And within that environment, reaction becomes contagious. One reaction triggers another. One opinion fuels another. One emotion spreads through many minds. But the grounded individual does not spread. They remain contained, not rigid, contained. This containment creates contrast, and contrast creates presence. People begin to notice the one who does not dissolve into group emotion, not because they are trying to stand out, but because they are not absorbed. Now understand something subtle. Silence is not always absence of words. Sometimes silence is absence of emotional investment. You can speak and still be silent internally, and you can be silent externally while internally reacting violently. Real silence is internal non-disturbance. That is what matters. Now move deeper into emotional triggers. Insults lose structure when you stop assigning identity to them. Without identity attachment, insult becomes just language. Without emotional ownership, criticism becomes information. And information does not require defense, only interpretation. But most people confuse criticism with attack, because ego transforms input into threat. Once ego is reduced, interpretation becomes neutral, and neutrality removes urgency. No urgency means no reaction pressure. No pressure means freedom of response. Now observe manipulation dynamics. Manipulation depends on emotional predictability. If anger is predictable, anger is used. If defense is predictable, defense is triggered. If explanation is predictable, confusion is created to force explanation. But when none of these are predictable, manipulation loses direction. It becomes inefficient, and inefficiency weakens influence. So silence is not passive. It is strategic unpredictability. Now extend this into personal boundaries. Boundaries are not enforced through constant reaction. They are enforced through consistency of non-access. People learn your boundaries not by hearing them repeatedly, but by encountering them consistently. And silence communicates boundaries more clearly than explanation, because explanation invites negotiation. Silence ends negotiation. Now consider emotional exhaustion. Every unnecessary response accumulates weight. Over time, this becomes fatigue, not physical fatigue, mental depletion, because attention has been fragmented across irrelevant engagements. Silence restores that fragmentation. It consolidates attention back into one internal center. And consolidated attention increases strength of perception. You begin to notice more with less effort, because you are no longer scattering awareness. Now a critical shift occurs. You stop seeking closure in external interactions. Many people engage to resolve internal discomfort. They want closure from others. But external closure is unstable, because it depends on another mind. Internal closure is stable, because it depends only on your interpretation. Once you close internally, external noise loses importance. Now reflect on power perception. True power is not seen in reaction. It is seen in restraint, because restraint implies control over impulse. Impulse is what most people cannot govern. So whoever governs impulse appears strong, not through aggression, but through stability. Now understand final expansion. Silence creates psychological space around you. That space becomes unreadable to others, and unreadability creates caution. People become more intentional around you, because they cannot easily predict emotional outcome. This changes interaction quality. Less manipulation attempts, less emotional testing, less unnecessary conflict, because your response cannot be assumed. And what cannot be assumed cannot be exploited easily. Now bring everything together. Silence is not withdrawal from life. It is refinement of participation. You are not less engaged. You are precisely engaged. You are not disconnected. You are selectively connected. You are not avoiding emotion. You are controlling expression of emotion. And that control reshapes every interaction you enter. Because now you are no longer reacting to life. You are observing life before responding to it. And observation always comes before mastery. If this continues to settle into your thinking, the next transformation is not learning more. It is living with reduced reaction until silence becomes identity itself. You are now moving beyond silence as behavior. This is no longer about holding back. This is about removing the internal system that even generates the urge to respond. At this stage, reaction does not get controlled. It gets dissolved before formation. That is a different level entirely. Most people still operate inside reaction psychology. Something happens, emotion rises, meaning is assigned, response follows. That chain feels natural, but it is actually mechanical conditioning. You are now breaking the chain at the earliest link. Not after emotion appears, before it stabilizes into identity. Now pay attention. The strongest emotional reactions in life are not caused by events. They are caused by interpretation speed. The faster you interpret, the less space you have. And without space, impulse becomes authority. So the first shift is slowing interpretation itself. Not thinking less, thinking wider, allowing multiple meanings to exist before selecting one. This removes emotional certainty too early, and uncertainty weakens reaction strength. Now you are no longer trapped in instant meaning. You are observing meaning formation itself. That alone reduces emotional intensity by force. Now extend deeper. People assume power is expressed outwardly, but real power is delay. Delay breaks control systems in human interaction, because most influence tactics depend on immediate emotional feedback. If feedback is delayed, the system becomes unstable, and unstable systems cannot manipulate cleanly. So your new strength is not silence alone. It is delayed internal permission. Nothing gets access instantly. Not insult, not praise, not accusation, not pressure. Everything waits. That waiting space becomes your territory. Now move further. You begin noticing how emotional language is designed to compress your thinking. Words like always, never, disrespect, failure, wrong, need, are not neutral. They are pressure tools. They force binary thinking, and binary thinking eliminates reflection. When reflection disappears, reaction dominates. So you stop accepting language at surface level. You decode intent beneath structure. This creates distance between input and response, and distance is control. Now understand something deeper. Most arguments are not about truth. They are about emotional release. People speak to unload tension, not exchange clarity. If you enter that space emotionally, you become part of their discharge system. You absorb what was never directed at truth. So you stop entering emotional discharge cycles. You allow expression without absorption. This is difficult at first, because the mind wants involvement. It wants closure. It wants completion. But completion is often illusion. Many conversations are not meant to complete. They are meant to circulate tension. So you stop seeking completion in unstable exchanges. Now your presence changes structure of interaction. People begin adjusting tone unconsciously, because they cannot predict emotional return. And unpredictability reduces aggressive intent. Now extend into internal discipline. At this stage, discipline is not effort. It is reduction of internal noise. Noise includes imagined arguments, replayed conversations, future conflict rehearsals, silent justifications. These consume attention constantly, even without external trigger. So you start removing internal simulations. You notice them without feeding them, and anything not fed loses strength. This is mental pruning. Now shift deeper. You realize most emotional reactions are rehearsed. The mind already knows how it will respond before moment arrives. That means reaction is not spontaneous. It is conditioned repetition. So you begin interrupting rehearsal patterns. When you notice internal script forming, you do not continue it. You cut it mid-flow. That interruption rewires emotional predictability. Now your reactions become less rehearsed, more conscious. And conscious responses are slower, and slower responses are more controlled. Now extend into social perception. People start interpreting your stillness as unreadable depth. Not because you are hiding something, but because you are no longer broadcasting emotional state instantly. Most people broadcast constantly, through tone, through facial response, through immediate verbal return. You reduce broadcast frequency. That reduction creates psychological distance, and distance creates perceived authority. Now understand something uncomfortable. Many conflicts survive because both sides keep feeding them. If one side stops feeding, structure collapses. But stopping feeding feels like losing to most minds, because ego equates engagement with importance. So disengagement feels like surrender. But in reality, disengagement is removal of fuel source. Without fuel, emotional fire cannot maintain form. Now extend into provocation dynamics. Provocation depends on extraction. Someone says something to extract reaction. If reaction is absent, extraction fails. And failed extraction creates confusion in the initiator. Confusion weakens continuation, because humans require feedback loops to persist emotional effort. No loop, no continuation. Now your silence becomes resistance without confrontation. Not passive, not emotional, structural refusal. Now move deeper into identity reconstruction. You stop identifying with immediate emotional responses. You begin identifying with what remains after reaction does not occur. That remaining space is awareness without disturbance. And awareness without disturbance becomes stable identity core. This core does not fluctuate with environment. It observes environment instead. Now extend further. You notice how people unconsciously seek to pull you into their emotional frequency. They do this through urgency, through repetition, through tone escalation, through moral pressure. But all of it requires your participation. Without participation, strategy collapses. So you learn refusal patterns. Not verbal refusal, internal refusal. You simply do not enter. Now extend into emotional independence. Independence means your state is no longer negotiated externally. No person can adjust your internal weather instantly. They may influence briefly but not control. This is major shift, because most people live in externally adjusted states. Mood is reactive. Confidence is reactive. Energy is reactive. But now you begin stabilizing baseline. So fluctuations become smaller. And smaller fluctuations reduce vulnerability. Now deepen awareness further. You notice silence is not absence of response. It is selective presence. You choose when mind activates outward expression. Not environment, not pressure, not expectation. Choice becomes centralized, and centralized choice equals sovereignty. Now extend into conversation dynamics. When you speak less reactively, words gain weight, not because they are louder, but because they are less diluted. Overcommunication weakens impact. Underreaction strengthens presence. Now people begin listening differently, not because you demand attention, but because you are not wasting it. Now extend into psychological resistance. Many environments will attempt to pull you back into emotional predictability. They will push buttons indirectly. They will test old reaction pathways. But now those pathways feel distant, not erased instantly, but no longer accessible automatically. That delay is transformation beginning. Now extend deeper. You start seeing emotional conflict as energy leakage system. Every unnecessary engagement drains internal coherence. So you treat engagement like expenditure, not obligation. This shifts priority from expression to preservation. Now extend into perception refinement. You begin noticing microsignals in interactions, shifts in tone, inconsistencies in language, emotional undercurrents beneath statements, because silence increases perception bandwidth. Less speaking equals more observing, and observation reveals structure behind behavior. Now extend into control stability. You realize control is not dominance over others. Control is elimination of internal volatility, because volatile mind reacts even when unnecessary. Stable mind chooses even when provoked. Now extend further. You notice people often escalate when they cannot predict you. They increase intensity to force reaction. But intensity without feedback burns itself out. So you allow intensity to exist without entering it. This creates collapse of escalation naturally. Now extend into emotional intelligence transformation. You are no longer interpreting emotions as instructions. You are reading them as signals. Signals are not commands. They are data, and data does not require obedience, only understanding. Now extend into self-mastery architecture. Every moment of non-reaction is structural reinforcement, not event-based discipline, but identity-level reinforcement. Each silence adds stability layer. Each restraint reduces emotional dependency. Each pause increases autonomy. Now extend into final stage of this transformation. You stop experiencing silence as something you do. You start experiencing silence as default cognition mode. Reaction becomes rare exception, not operating system. And in that state, external emotional pressure loses leverage entirely, because there is no predictable access point left to influence. What remains is continuous awareness, uninterrupted observation, uncompromised internal stability, and decisions that originate only from clarity, not disturbance. This is where silence stops being a practice you learned and becomes the version of you that cannot be undone. At this point, you are no longer reacting to life. You are interpreting it in real time without emotional distortion. You are no longer defending your peace. You are embodying it, and that changes everything, because people around you will still try to pull reactions from you. They will still test, provoke, challenge, and push, but they will begin to notice something unsettling. There is nothing to grab anymore. No emotional leverage. No visible trigger. No predictable response. Just presence. Still, controlled, unmoved. And that kind of presence speaks louder than any argument ever could. Because silence at this level is no longer emptiness. It is authority without noise. It is discipline without announcement. It is strength without performance. Now look carefully. You were never weak for reacting before. You were simply untrained in restraint. But now that awareness has formed, there is no return to unconscious reaction. Because once you see the mechanism, you cannot unsee it. And once you understand control, chaos stops feeling normal. So from this moment forward, you carry a different responsibility. Not to speak more wisely, but to react less unnecessarily. Not to prove yourself, but to preserve your internal clarity. Not to win emotional battles, but to step outside them entirely. That is real elevation. That is real control. And that is the point where silence becomes identity. Don't let it stay as information. Turn it into practice. Because understanding without application still keeps you in the same place. And awareness without discipline fades over time. But controlled silence applied daily changes your entire life structure. Now, if you are still here, you are not here by accident. This is where growth begins to separate from entertainment. If something shifted in your mindset while watching this, don't ignore it. Subscribe for more content that builds control, awareness, and inner discipline. Not everything deserves your reaction, but your growth does deserve consistency. Stay connected and keep building a stronger mind. Like this video if you felt the shift in mindset. Comment control if you are choosing discipline over reaction from this point forward. Share this with someone who needs to regain control of their emotions. And don't stop here. On your screen right now, there is another video waiting for you. Watch it next, because your mindset is not meant to stay the same after this moment. It is meant to evolve.